2.5 hours of custom proposal work after every sales call, now down to 15 minutes. Vinayak is a founder of Superjoin doing his own enterprise sales. He built a Claude automation that turns one call transcript and CRM history into a deeply customized sales proposal where every number, regulation, and currency matches the buyer's country. He shows us a live proposal, human in the loop step he added after early drafts failed, and the 10 iterations behind it. By the end, you'll know how to build it.
So Vinayak, you take 25 calls a week, right? See, how many of those do you think needs a custom proposal afterward, and how long did they take you?
Yeah, so about 50 to 60% of the calls that I take require some sort of custom proposal to be sent out because I'm dealing with enterprise customers mostly. All right, these customers really care about tailored proposals, the entire product set to be tailored according to their terminologies, according to them. So I would say out of the 30 calls that I take every week, almost 15 of them require a custom proposal to be sent out. And this used to take me for every proposal. You'll have internal calls, then you'll have to figure out, okay, these are the changes that are required. There's no set template or set rule for the whole thing. So it used to take me at least a couple of hours. And right, procrastination, somebody called you, all of that used to lead to delays in getting this out. So now with Claude and the AI setup that I've gotten, this has gotten much, much faster. It's almost like within 30 minutes, I'm able to send out a proposal now.
So,
Awesome.
was Claude the first thing that you tried, or did you try some other automation before trying Claude?
No, I think I'm pretty comfortable with Claude now, right? So we just use Claude. In parallel, I tried ChatGPT also, but I feel like just I've already connected everything to my Claude setup, so it's just much faster. So that's my primary go-to AI bot outside the, which has all the context and everything.
Understood. So, see, earlier the process was that we just used a template, we swap out some names. That was the earlier sales process. I've also been in sales. Like, what big change did you observe when you started doing it this way?
The thing is, like, I think the bar for a proposal or the bar in general for sales is going up. I don't know if you have seen it or not, Gautam, like, and Rahul. You can tell if something is AI generated or AI written. And the thing is, if you use templates, you still have to work a lot more on customizing it as well, right? It's not that straightforward. And when we are dealing with like we are an early stage startup, we are figuring out stuff. So no two proposals also look very similar. They can have very, very different things because the GTM motion itself is maturing, right? So for us, having like a very strict template, which just have to change the word, that wasn't the case. In a lot of these proposals that I sent out, almost 60-70% of the slides would be different, right? So, for example, if I'm talking to an Indian company versus a US company, a very simple example, we deal with a lot of financial advisory firms. So, let's take an example of three companies, one in US, one in Singapore, one in India. Every number, every image that you see in the deck has different currency outputs, right? So a company in the US would have all the graphics with dollars in it. An Indian would be an INR, or a Singapore company would be in Singaporean dollars, right? And to just add on to it, like the since we're dealing with a lot of financial advisory firms, there are different regulations in different countries. So let's take an example of creating a simple valuation deck to do like different valuations. There are different guidelines for different countries. Now, these are things which really matter. They can close the deal for you. So making sure that these decks are tailored for the individual it's going to is something our our ICP or our buyers really care about. So if you see, like if I give you, okay, we are gonna do an ESOP valuation for your company, but none of the regulations that I've written are according to your country, that doesn't make sense, right? And suddenly, if a competitor comes and gives the entire deck in all the rules and regulations that your country has, it's just so much better. You will have instant trust on them versus us. So these are small things, but there are hundred such things which today when you're going to market for a product which is still maturing, needs a lot more customization and tweaks, which easily takes about 2.5 hours if it has to be done manually, right? Now, if you can automate it, right, and you can do it really, really well, that time comes down, and your sales decks, your chances of closing a customer also increases. So that's the difference. With AI, you can either create AI slop or use AI to actually create meaningfully different experiences for the user.
Who's the ideal persona for this? So, in your case, you're a founder, salesperson. Uh, I mean, there are large enterprise sales teams with their own ops person, right? Like sales ops.
Yeah. So I think I don't know how much ops roles would be needed in the future. I think a lot of this work is needed by every sales professional out there. Anybody who is doing enterprise sales, be it a founder, be it a sales, an account executive, basically needs to do this day in, day out. And especially when you are dealing with mid-sized to large firms, right? Small firms, it's okay to, have templates in place, but these large companies, they really want uh, closure in terms of like if everything is specifically being spoken in their language, in their terms. So that's where all this customization is needed and comes in very, very handy, right? So founders, account executives, even to some extent, like when you're trying to figure out expansion opportunities and selling around that, that's also somewhere it is also needed. You can think about partnership teams. If you're doing a lot of partnerships, right? That's a big team which would need custom proposals in place, right? So these are three ICPs that I can think of instantly who would really benefit from an automation like this.
Okay, would love to see this now. So imagine that you just got off a sales call. So you have the transcript of the call with you. So then what do you do next?
Let me show you our setup currently. So everything runs on top of Claude for us today. What we have done is we've gone ahead and connected multiple connectors. So we use Attio as a CRM, we use Fathom as our meeting recording system. Then we have our Notion, we have different systems in place. So what I've done is I've just connected these. You can simply connect them by clicking on connector, browsing that connector, and searching for Fathom here, and you'll get a plus button. And it's just sign in with Google after that, right? That's how simple it is. So you can connect it with different connectors also. So this is our connector. So basically, this is how we have connected everything. And what I did was I set up a new task. I said, okay, this is what I wanna achieve. I wanna get all my data from the meeting into my CRM and uh, use all the existing knowledge that the CRM has about that customer and create sort of like a automation to help me then create a business proposal based on existing proposals that I have and the context of that call, right? So that's what I told Claude to help me with. And this and what finally we have done is sort of created like an automation here, which runs on a schedule or it can be run manually, right? So every day in the morning and in the evening, it does this automatically. And this is a simple prompt. And I did not write this prompt. All of this prompt came from like just talking to Claude and improving the outcome that I was trying to achieve, right? So it's very simple. You are a sales op assistant. You need to, update and draft updates to CRM based on the transcript. And what you have to do is get the data from Fathom, store it in Attio, create action items, create tasks, right? And then create a proposal out of it. So that's the current setup. And so what I do is I use it in two ways. One is after every call, I can just run it manually. So I just do that. Uh, and it also runs every day in the morning at 9 a.m. Right? So I primarily take care of a lot of sales meetings. Some of them require uh, proposals and some don't. Like 50% of them require sales proposals. Right? So whenever a proposal is due, I just click on run now and that proposal is basically ready for me, right? And all that knowledge, when is it needed, when is it not needed, I've sort of baked it into this prompt here, right? So that's the setup. And let me show you the kind of outputs that you basically get. Uh, from this setup.
Got it. So now we're looking at the output, right?
Yeah. So let me just give you a quick context, right? So Superjoin basically designs AI agents for financial advisory firms for two domains, valuations and valuation teams and audit teams, right? Now, when I'm speaking to a US customer, if you see everything, this deck was created for a US client. What I've done is I've removed a lot of things which had customer name in it. So just because you're getting on a call, it's going to be on YouTube. So what I did was I removed a lot of places where customer name was. So here you would have like a customer logo also. This is a US client deck. So all the numbers that you see are in dollars here.
Right.
You'll see the um, the valuation and the rules and regulations around that valuation, right, are all in the guidelines of US laws. So ASC, ASC 820, IFRS, all of this are basically for a US customer. So if you see like everything regulatory frameworks, all the methodologies are what practitioners in the US use. So this is the kind of output that you now get with the automation that I've built, right? So that's the high level idea, right? And this is uh, everything comes out of the box with the agent. So we can talk about what goes in, how do you create these, but this is the kind of proposals that you get.
So there'll be several parts in the sales conversation where you feel like, hey,
Yeah,
this is something I should really emphasize. Like this
yeah,
part of the
yeah,
conversation is something that should be captured into the proposal. So how do you
yeah,
regulate that? You don't want
yeah,
something that is like completely done by the connector automatically and then have to
yeah,
rework that, because that looks like additional work. How do you handle
yeah.
that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? So all of these things took a lot of time to iterate over. So just like Uh, so I try to just, automate it in one shot, everything, right? But then you start seeing, okay, you start getting a feel of things once you start doing it, right? When I started with this automation journey, the automation looked like, okay, can I just put everything in the CRM, fetch all the data, all my previous history from there, and ask Claude to just create like a proposal out of it, a PowerPoint deck. What I learned very quickly was, as you said, a lot of things were incorrectly transcribed, especially numbers. If I'm saying $50,000 instead of $5,000, such mistakes were very, very common. First is that. Second is a lot of stress points were being missed out, as you mentioned. So these were real problems. So, for example, we discussed in an internal call versus an external call, right? So I have to give some pricing to a new for a new use case, which we don't have currently, which we don't support internally. So you'll have to go back to the tech team, to your product team, talk over there, get all of that data, right? So a lot of this came via iterations. So now the current setup that I have involves a couple of manual steps, right? First manual step is, okay, you took all of this context from Fathom, from my CRM, you create an outline of the presentation that you are trying to build. Along with that, you also take the history of that conversation, all the conversation that I've had before, both internal as well as with the customer, to create that deck, right? So both those things are in place now. Now, whenever Claude has to create this presentation, this sort of a proposal, it takes both of those things, creates the outline for me to review. Once I approve the outline, everything from there becomes like a automated system again.
I see.
That's the whole way of basically making sure that you are capturing everything that you wanna see. Some parts of it is still human judgment and knowledge also, right? So that's the way I've sort of safeguarded against creating something which requires even more rework, right? So this step of review takes me what, 5-7 minutes, but then I
Right.
have everything in place. The deck is created automatically, and everything happens after that.
So you have brought in a judgment node where there is a human in the loop and the human
Yeah.
with judgment. Got it. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. And that happens at a couple of places. One is this place where the proposal itself is an outline. And then post that, nothing goes out automatically. Everything remains in the draft sort of a mode, right? I have to approve it, and only then anything customer facing actually goes to the customer, right? So be it an email that has to be written, be it a proposal that has to be built. So that's the place where I've put like a safeguard, a human in the loop. So after the proposal has been created, I still review the final proposal before it goes out.
So, how much is the output sort of improved the first time you tried this automation versus through iterations?
It's night and day, Rahul. It's really night and day. The first, like, there's been so many improvements, and we've had so many better ideas while we have done this. Like, we were earlier trying to create PowerPoint proposals, which did not work. There were a lot of issues with it. We did not have meetings from internal, like context from internal meetings that we were taking up. So, um, you have to have both. You have to have context from external meetings as well as internal meetings. So we had to figure out, okay, Claude also has to, first we have to add our note takers on every internal call regarding that client. So any customer related calls that we are having internally, we sort of make sure Fathom is there in all of those calls as well, right? So all of them are recorded. Now, when I am running this automation, I've now made iteration to make sure that internal calls are also recorded, and all that context is also sitting with the agent, with the bot, right? And all that gets plumped into the final deck that is being created.
Like you mentioned about recording all the calls. There are scenarios, right? Like just today, in a different context, I was trying to record something and it didn't fully record the conversation. Okay, if it's a 60-minute conversation, probably it recorded 50 minutes for a number of reasons. So then, like, would it then affect the output?
It would, Rahul. The honest answer is it would. If you throw garbage in, you'll get garbage out. So what I've typically seen is the agents are getting so good at filling the gap. So for example, if your recording had a bit of error, or some parts of it got missed out because your network was laggy, or some other reason, the models are getting so good that they can fill in the gap with decent amount of accuracy. You still have to make sure the numbers are correct. So we really have like a checklist of things now in my final review that I'm checking. And that is all human review. For example, all the numbers should be correct. The person being addressed is correct. The use cases that we are talking about are all correct. So these are small checks that I have in place now, but very like I think over time, the amount of time I have to spend even in review has gone down so much. Like the first version of this had me, like it took me about 2.5, 3 hours, more than what I was spending manually to build this, right? For every time I was doing this. But over time, it has gotten to almost 25, 30 minutes. That's also like some proposals I'm basically doing in 10, 15 minutes now, right? Like the maximum time I'm spending is 30 minutes per proposal. So that's the kind of gap, the impact that I've seen over time. If you just keep iterating over it, right? The first time that you do it, you'll probably have to spend more time, but it's all the reps that you put in to iterate your workflow, which reduces the time.
Understood. There's one scenario, right? The client is sharing a lot of sensitive information. They may be saying things on call that shouldn't be
Yeah.
out there. So
Yeah.
how do you have guardrails around that? Like how do you protect the client's interests? Ensure that also the client wouldn't want to see you putting the data out there, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So before we jump into any meeting, the first, like this is the habit we have formed, and it's very, very strict. We follow that to the T. So we ask every single client before we get on the call that, okay, we're gonna add a note taker on the call. Do you have any objections around it? So that's the first check that we definitely have before we get into anything. So if the client doesn't consent, unfortunately, then I have to draft those meeting notes on my own. And that is what gets fed into Attio directly, into my CRM directly. And that's what's used to build the deck, right? And the second thing is there's a step here where we manage. So uh, in the transcription itself. So if the client has approved already, all of this is taken care of. If the note taker has been approved, this is a solved problem. And more or less what we have typically seen now, customers don't mind having note takers on the call. So I think less than 10% of my calls are calls where a note taker is not allowed. Somebody has objected about it, which is fine, right? You'll have those occasional misses, where you have to take up the workload to do the draft of that context manually. So that's how we basically do it. And then there's a small instruction step. First is anything visually is not being sent to outside Fathom anyways. So it's reading the transcript. So if they're showing something, all of that is taken care of, right? So that's another layer of protection that's there.
That makes sense. So effectively, it's consent, transparency, and then also tight control on where it's shared, where it's not. Great.
Correct.
That's a
And
great approach.
it's all within our ecosystem, right? It's within our Claude environment. It's not being shared to any third party, right? So everything, all the decks and all are just being made using like not using a third party software.
Right.
What would be the next version of this? Like, how do you see yourself improving what you already have?
Honestly, I feel the places today I have to spend some time on is completely new, um, something which we haven't encountered before, and feeding that into the proposal, which is, so let's say you have to have a new proposal which involves something you just haven't done before, right? Or completely new request. That's somewhere where I have to still put in the effort to make sure, you know, for example, let's say I'm expanding into a new use case. From valuations and audit, I'm going to financial due diligence also. These are different teams in advisory firms. In our customers, like different functions. A generic example would be you were selling software to, let's say, marketing people. Now you have to also sell it to salespeople or sales ops or some product team, right? Now, when I'm doing that as an early stage startup, you end up doing a lot of these explorations also. You are also trying to get to the right sales point, to the right ICP. All of those are very iterative journeys. So when I'm encountering something very, very new for the first time, I think Claude is still not able to really interpret and give out the vision that I have in my mind in the proposal. So um, that's one area where I would like to personally improve on in the next iteration also. Like making sure that from scratch, if it has to start something, it does that really, really well without a lot of
That makes
back and
sense.
forth
So
between
now
me and Claude.
I'm trying to imagine how somebody is setting this up, right? Like the first time, we have our viewers listening, and they're like, I want to set this up. I would first go to Claude on my web, set up connectors,
Mhm.
right? Have, let's say, a note taker connected in, have my CRM connected. Then
Yeah,
I would set up a flow, and then
yeah,
I would decide when to run the flow. Does it have to be periodically run? Does it have to be, do I run it
manually.
immediately? And then there'll be a prompt that I have to give for all of this, which I have to iterate based on my custom needs and my custom interest, right?
Yeah,
That will be the full process.
that's correct. Yeah.
What tip would you have for somebody who's setting this up right after this call?
So my tip would be do not chase perfection on your first try. This is a very, very iterative process. I have iterated this over 10 times and it's still not done, right? I know there's an 11th iteration that I have to make. The key thing is that you wanna start by automating this and then figure out where is it breaking. And initially it will feel like a time sink, but if you work on it enough, if you iterate on it enough, over time it will just compound, right? You will just start seeing a lot better results, and you'll be able to then figure out, okay, what is the missing. Once you start, then you'll be able to figure out what are the missing gaps that I have to fill for my team. And that's where it starts compounding even faster. So just start. That's my first advice. Just start and then iterate very, very quickly on the outputs, on the process that you want.
And earlier you mentioned the bar for sales have just gone up, right? So what does that mean? So in terms of proposal, in the context of proposal, that means that you should be providing white glove treatment in the sense like something really customized so that um, you present something that's very tailored to the customer. That's one. And then the speed of getting back. Is there anything else to this?
I feel, see, one is human relationship, right? Like sales, finally, enterprise sales happen a lot on relationship. So I always I think of enterprise sales as just consultative sales. Like you really need to just help your person who would potentially buy the solution from you, even though it might not be your problem. So that relationship part is something that you have to really, really make sure that you are doing that honestly and just to help the other person.
Making it easy for him, right?
Yeah, and the see, you have to like the other person to buy the tool. Like, let's say I am a little bit priced on a higher side compared to you, Rahul. We are both selling the same thing to Gautam. If Gautam thinks I will be able to provide a much better support or just have a better relationship with him throughout this journey, and it's going to be a long journey, right? He will choose me over choosing you, even though my product is slightly on the pricier front. I've seen that time and time again. So still that human relationship, connecting with the person is something that I feel like is in this AI world, it's still very, very important, and you have to really approach it with even more honestly, with a lot more. I feel like that has become such a core thing now. You have to do that really, really well. And the second thing, as you said, the bar has become so high for everything else around it. Like relationship is on the core, but everything surrounding that, the proposals that you send out, the demo that you send out, the follow-up time that you send,
Yeah,
right? Is
responsiveness. Yeah.
you are the responsiveness, the customization, the white glove treatment, as you mentioned, the bar is becoming so high. It's just crazy because you are not just competing with yourself, you are competing with other companies who are using AI as well. So if they are doing a better job at it, if they are replying faster to your ICP, to your buyer with a better experience, you will lose out on the deal. So you will
Yeah.
have to make sure that you're selling very, very tailored solution, which your buyer would be able to grasp very, very quickly.
So, couple of years back, this was before AI tools existed. Okay. So, when you interview for a role, I was interviewing for a sales role, and then they ask you to do like a side case study, like a small doc that you're supposed to do as a
Hmm.
task.
Hmm.
And then my wife would always say, you need to make sure that it is presented really well in terms of like putting into a nice template and stuff like that. So I did this, and then I got the job, but then and then the hiring manager later told me that you got the job because your deck was more prettier than the other one. So yeah, it helps.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the key thing here.
This was great. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
I'm glad I could be helpful, Rahul, Gautam, and I'm honestly looking forward to seeing how shipping with AI actually, touches the 100K subscriber count, which it will. I'm super happy that I got a chance to do it. Let me just do a quick plug about what Superjoin does, if you don't mind. And uh, I think everything else is pretty sorted. If anybody needs any help in setting this up, they can reach out to me as well. I'm more than happy to help you guys also. So at Superjoin, we are basically building AI agents for financial advisory firms for two core practices, valuations and audit teams. So we come in, understand your end-to-end processes, figure out where are the places to optimize your workflows today with AI. So that's the whole idea. Uh, the promise we make is that you will end up saving 80% time, right? So that's the core promise that we bring, and all of this workflow customization happens for your team according to your guidelines, according to your firm, right? So that's a little bit about us. We are already working with very, very large enterprises all over the world. So we have about 20,000 users using the product today, right? Uh, and we're lucky to, be backed by great VC firms as well.
Thank you for sharing all that about Superjoin. We're really looking forward to seeing how your agent portfolio agent expands and what all services it ends up offering. And we're also really looking forward to you releasing the V2 of what you just demoed and seeing how much it ups your sales game.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you, Rahul.